So I'm thoroughly excited about the solutions that my fellow panelists here have been talking about. And this is actually a part of the work that I have a lot of hope and excitement about. And that's partly just because the history of SEIU has been from the beginning in organizing low wage workers who are excluded. So, anytime you look at a growing piece of our economy and say, oh, these people, there hasn't been a way to organize them or an effort to organize, that's exactly where we should focus. And it is historically the work that we've done. So, we're a union that was built by, women and people of color and people who were deliberately written out of labor law. And so our whole organizing history is in inventing ways to do that. Recent examples of people who were excluded, who we've, found a way to organize that I think is relevant here is home care workers. Who had a similar status and had similar problems in terms of not being really seen as, employees who were coverable under labor law, and most importantly, who were kept really kind of fragmented and isolated without a work site. And so a lot of those same challenges are the challenges that we experience with people who are doing this kind of work. And so, not being covered under labor law, not having a pathway to the union, not having rights, not being seen as real employees, like those are all choices. And people, elected officials, policymakers, everyone, we all get to decide who is and isn't protected and who is and isn't able to exercise their right to free association and collective action and collective bargaining. And so those are all the things that can change. And, so when you talk about the kind of legal and policy level changes, this question of not even being recognized as a worker is pretty fundamental. But I'll just point out that some of the most exciting work that I'm engaged in right now is our organizing in 4 states right now to make it possible for rideshare drivers to actually organize a union and collectively bargain under state law. And so it's kind of an ironic moment because the fact that the drivers are not recognized as employees and are not covered by the National Labor Relations Act, the federal law, that's actually what makes it possible to construct a state level framework. So in some states where we are pursuing that strategy, Massachusetts, California, Illinois, and Minnesota are the states where that's active. So, those are challenges. And in some states, we're able to, develop a whole new structure to try to take that on for all of the reasons that Minson was describing. But then just on the practical level, the challenges are familiar also because it's really at the core of, what makes it possible to organize any workforce. Step one, workers need to be able to communicate with each other in order to build power and raise standards. And the biggest challenge in this kind of organizing is that workers don't have a way to even find each other to communicate. And the union does not have a way to communicate on scale. And so that really is the first and biggest practical challenge. So many of our kind of creative organizing drives all start with, how do you just set up a channel to communicate? And so many workers, rideshare drivers especially, want the union. And the moment you can find a way to communicate that question, ask the question, the answer is yes. And the platform technologies just really drive that imbalance, where the company can communicate directly with every worker on the platform in order to do all of that kind of coercive management stuff that Minson was talking about. But individual workers have no way to find each other to interact or communicate. And people get very creative, but that is the biggest problem, honestly, that we have to solve. And organizing in this space is actually challenging us as a union to learn and develop new ways to find and to communicate across fragmented, isolated work sites. And so that's really important for us to develop those tools and those channels of communication, both for this organizing purpose, but just, this is what drives power for all of our members to be able to have that collective action and collective communication.